Yeah, the general consensus on this Workers' Day seems to be that there's really not a lot to celebrate. Even for those who actually do have a job, quite something in a country with a massive joblessness rate like ours, there's still substantial challenges facing our workforce. And I'm joined now by Ashley Benjamin, the Deputy General Secretary of Fedusa, the Federation of Unions of South Africa. Ashley, thank you so much for joining us. A number of unions from across various sectors are affiliated with Fedusa. I mean, you've got about 500,000 members, a bit more than that. It includes everyone from like airline pilots, health workers, librarians, the hospitality industry, security, motor workers, public servants. I'm wondering, just generally, if you take the temperature of unionized workers, what is their biggest concern in South Africa today?
Sally, and good evening to the viewers. Well, the challenges of workers in South Africa today is the quality of employment, the conditions of employment. I think it would be unfair to say nothing has changed for workers in South Africa since the dawn of democracy. But it's the quality of jobs that we are experiencing a problem in South Africa. For argument's sake, casualization of jobs. There's many jobs created, but it's not of a permanent nature. It's on a casual basis, and it normally don't come with all the benefits that workers enjoy. That is one of the key challenges that workers are facing in South Africa today.
I mean, in a shrinking or perhaps just stagnating economy such as ours, one that is hit with the impact of the global economic crisis, but also our problems closer to home, such as the power crisis, we are dealing with a small pool of available jobs. It's not a very deep bowl to dive into if you're looking for jobs with great perks and a lot of support. How do you, as union members, create leverage so that you make sure workers are fairly treated in an environment where, frankly, as a working South African, one feels lucky to have a job?
It's been very challenging for workers and trade unions in the past decade, as you just mentioned. There's challenges on a daily basis, there's job losses, there's precarious jobs that's increasing. And as trade unions, we need to find that balance by improving the lives of workers, but equally looking after the general well-being of the economy, because if without a strong economy, you cannot create jobs. And I think it's the policy choices of government that's exacerbated the challenge that we have with unemployment. These things can be fixed. Unemployment can be fixed. Good jobs can be fixed, but it's the incoherence of government policy and the own goals as we see it that's causing this problem for us in this country. In particular, the energy crisis. It is devastating. It's a humongous crisis. If you've seen the number of liquidations of businesses in South Africa, it's alarming how many businesses filing for business rescue or liquidations. That is directly linked to the energy crisis and the unavailability of reliant and affordable energy in South Africa.
Yeah, absolutely. And then we hear tonight that we're going back to stage 6 load shedding from 4 o'clock this afternoon, tomorrow afternoon rather. Terry Bell saying we've got at least 3 to 5 years of this, and actually a lot of analysts have said the same. But then you hear about Eskom workers who are demanding a 15% increase. Eskom cannot keep the lights on. How on earth can Eskom employees expect a 15% increase? I don't understand that.
I think maybe the general public and the media must be educated about the processes of collective bargaining. Mm-hmm. Collective bargaining is a process of give and take. So parties will normally come to the bargaining table with their opening positions, and as they progress, they try to find each other. And you'll hardly find where every trade union, and I need to be corrected, and a trade union will start with an opening demand, and at the end of the negotiations, still stick to that demand, unless something really bad went wrong during the collective bargaining process. But these are processes of collective bargaining, and parties normally find each other in order to find
Yeah,
amicable
except when they
agreement.
don't. I mean, first of all, I understand an opening gambit, 15%, still seems high in a country where if you're getting at around the rate of inflation increase, which essentially means that your salary is just keeping up with inflation, you count yourself lucky. 15% increase is a big ask, even as an opening gambit. And last year, let's not forget what happened with Eskom. And I'm not asking you to speak for them, but I'm just saying this is how a lot of South Africans are looking at wage negotiations and the role of unions. And we saw sabotage. We saw people being intimidated. And we saw Eskom cave and give them, I think it was 7%. So really, what is the point of going to the negotiating table if you see unions going and doing, they don't sanction it, but we kind of know that there were union members involved. It creates this divisive situation. And I'm just wondering, what is the role of a modern union in trying to make sure that negotiations are realistic, as fair as they possibly can be, even despite the difficult times? I mean, I don't know if Eskom, for example, is a good example, but it's certainly a very top-of-mind example for many South Africans.
Thank you. I think this is the own goals I've referred to earlier, that the lack of political will by the elite and politicians. If you look at Eskom and many other state-owned enterprises, that's been run to the ground by these executives, and some of them have been hoarding themselves big bonuses for even running entities to the ground. Now, how do you explain that to ordinary workers to say, you must make a sacrifice, you must now suffer because of incompetence and corrupt politicians and other executives in business? And this is the problem in this country, the corruption. I don't think sometimes we understand the level, the root of corruption and how it negatively affects the economy and decent jobs in South Africa. Again, with the politicians, I mean, the policy direction, they talk left and they walk right. There are various ways in one can deal with this crisis of unemployment and joblessness. For an example, South Africa's got very good industrial policy programs, very good aimed at creating jobs and building strong industries. Like many other nations, the prosperous nations in the world invest huge amounts in manufacturing, like in the Eastern countries, Eastern Europe. Part of Latin Americans realized as well that in order to build a prosperous society, you need a strong manufacturing base. In South Africa, we talk industrialization, but we open the markets for cheap imports coming into South Africa, destroying good quality jobs in South Africa, affecting the fiscus, less taxes, less money to spend on social welfare and those things. And that is the problem, the lack of political will and incoherence with these politicians and how they manage the and the economy.
I mean, where do we go? Because, if we look at what happened in the city of Tshwane a few weeks ago, with those pylons, because they'd been systematically, the steel had been systematically picked off and stolen, they collapsed. And that put out the Ford manufacturing plant for at least a couple of days, which meant the loss of, I think, over 700 vehicles a day. There is a thriving manufacturing plant, brought to an absolute halt by crime. It doesn't seem to, there just seem to be so many issues facing even things that seem to be working in this country. Where is it going?
No, I agree with you. It's a serious cause of concern. I mean, that is treason for us. I mean, if you look at pylons being destroyed and that disrupting manufacturing, in particular Ford, recently invested billions of rands in South Africa, building the latest models of the Ford range and others, creating decent jobs. Those workers are earning decent wages and good working conditions. And it's totally unacceptable that the politicians that manage the country cannot even fix simple things like resolving crime. I mean, where is the crime intelligence? Where is the intelligence agencies where anyone can just sabotage and attack key institutions like power supplies and power lines and pylons? It is lawlessness that you haven't seen. It again reflects the poor state and the leadership in this country. And I think the president must catch a wake up too, because he's not giving real direction and workers and the public at large don't see the real Tumamina moment he's been talking about, creating a better life for all.
Yeah, and as you say, infrastructure theft and general lawlessness ultimately, and along with the power crisis, ultimately leads to businesses closing, jobs being lost, our economy getting smaller and smaller, less and less jobs, and workers' rights also get squeezed in the process. Thank you very much for speaking to us this evening. Ashley Benjamin is the Deputy General Secretary of Fedusa, the Federation of Unions of South Africa.